The next time is Spencer McGrath.
So I'll do introductions. Well, thank you. I'm Spencer McGrath. I'm Director of Scientific Publications at the American Association for Thoracic Surgery, AATS for short. I'd like to thank Clinum for the opportunity to present today and Lou for the invitation. I don't have any disclosures, but I will say that we are not a self-published society. We partner with Elsevier, and as you may know, Elsevier is making record profits. They made $1.2 billion in profits in 2022. We don't get a lot of that, but we do benefit from the expert services that they provide. I work with a team of editorial office professionals to manage the peer review and publishing operations for 6 journals focused in advances of cardiothoracic surgery. JTCVS in the top left corner there is our flagship title, the longest standing journal. The 2 next to it, JTCVS Techniques and JTCVS Open, we launched in 2020. These are open access journals. We do charge authors, but everything published in those journals is freely available in perpetuity online. JTCVS Techniques recently received its first impact factor this past June. Both journals are indexed in PubMed Central, along with the rest of the journals here on this slide. Just a few statistics on the program. Last year, we published 3,000 articles. The program generated 5.2 million article downloads, 50,000 citations. JTCVS is ranked 13th of 211 surgery journals by impact factor, and our average time to first decision is 18 days. Okay, if we're gonna talk about fraudulent publishing and fake science or scientific misconduct, we have to say a few words about the current publishing landscape. And a major component of that right now is a huge increase to global research output, mainly driven by this publish or perish incentive that many of you as researchers will face within an academic setting. And you know, we've seen with the COVID pandemic a huge increase in the number of submissions we received starting in 2020, and it has continued. This is coupled with the expansion of the gold open access business model, which is not negative in its own right, but it has provided opportunities for predatory publishers to take advantage of this business model, and it really makes the publishing landscape very murky, I would say, for authors, readers, and scientists in general. In this context, there's a huge burden on volunteer reviewers. They are asked to review more and more papers every year, and now they're also asked to identify papers that may have originated from a large-scale paper mill or been subject to authorship for sale practices. You'll see Lou had a slide on paper mills that he quickly went over, so I'll say a few comments here. Hindawi is an open access publisher, and it was purchased by Wiley a number of years ago. And since that merger or acquisition, Hindawi has issued large amounts of article retractions in bulk. And when they do that, you can kind of see, if you track, there's a great article in Scholarly Kitchen from about 2 weeks ago. When Hindawi and Wiley release retractions of papers, many of which came through a paper mill process, you'll see the number of papers published in these other large journals like Frontiers or MDPI diminish significantly for the following 60 days. And that's because these publishers, as well as authors, are probably, taking a much closer look at what they're doing as it kind of shakes the system. So these really do have a major impact on current publishing practices. Okay, and of course it wouldn't be a publishing session if we didn't discuss the elephant in the room, which is artificial intelligence and its impact on authorship and peer review. this is not a session on AI, but I will say that it's very hard for journals and scientific associations right now to stay ahead of the technologies, to develop policies, protocols, guidelines for authors and reviewers with these new technologies. So we're currently facing this. And we don't know, but we do know that it's going to have a major impact on authorship considerations and peer review. I will say, if you are a reviewer, please don't copy and paste anything from a submission you're reviewing into one of these technologies, because that is certainly against the confidentiality agreements that you've agreed to. Okay, so at AATS, what we do in this context is we rely heavily on a very engaged community of clinicians and scientists, many of whom are AATS members. And this very large team of reviewers, editorial board members, editors are responsible for producing rigorous peer review of manuscripts that we assign them. And what our team looks like is we have 50 associate and feature editors, 210 editorial board members, and 1,200 reviewers. 1,200 reviewers, excuse me. And last year, this team was able to handle 5,000 submissions from 65 countries. We've accepted papers from 29 countries, and they were able to do that by providing most authors a first decision within 18 days. And I raise this, I highlight this because we reward our reviewers, we give good reviewers growth to become editorial board members, and we give editorial board members an opportunity to become associate and feature editors. And we've proven to our community and to our members that we are invested in peer review, and they're rewarded for providing good peer review. And I think as an author or as a reviewer or as a reader, some things that you want to look for in a journal is, do they publish their masthead in every issue? Are editorial board members listed with their institutional affiliation? Do they have their specialty next to them so that you know who may be reviewing and handling the paper that you're submitting? And something that we do that I think shows that you're invested in peer review is we're publishing the list of all reviewers that reviewed a paper for us in the past 12 months with a thank you letter every year. And if you can find some of these things, I think it's a good signal that that journal that you're either thinking about submitting to or you're thinking about reading and citing articles from is probably a trusted source. And this is just to completely overstate the importance of rigorous peer review and its ability to catch and identify scientific misconduct or fraudulent papers before we publish them. And that's really, really important. I think we do a good job at trying to weed out some of the bad science before it ends up in the scientific literature. Okay, but nonetheless, scientific misconduct is on the rise, and it's something that we really have to deal with. The statistics or metrics here are recently published in The Guardian in an editorial that was published this past August by the co-founders of Retraction Watch. Last year in 2022, Retraction Watch cataloged 5,500 article retractions, although in the editorial they state that they believe as many as 100,000 articles could be retracted every year. Some say more. And earlier this year, as I think that really shows the quality of the Retraction Watch database, Crossref purchased that database. They have now combined it with their own database of article retractions, and that now consists of 50,000 article retractions that are public, fully for free, available, and they are working with publishers that may not have that article retracted on all their publishing platforms, and that's a great initiative. Atop the Retraction Watch leaderboard is an anesthesiologist with 186 retractions. Yeah, that's no joke. He was involved in perioperative management of cardiac surgery. doing blood treatment during surgery. And 5 of these papers that he was lead author on published in JTCVS between 1989 and 1994. We did not retract these 5 articles until 2020. And we were waiting for an official report from the university's Office of Research Integrity that finally recommended full retraction of all these papers. But that's not to say that we, let me see. Yeah, what do we do when we receive allegations of misconduct or requests to retract articles? Well, first thing we do is we always write the author in question or the authors, and we request a response. We outline what the allegations were, and we ask them to respond. This is the first step in all the best practice guidelines provided by COPE, which is the Committee on Publication Ethics. If you're not familiar with COPE, it's a great resource for authors, for reviewers, for editors, that really outlines best practice recommendations for anything involving ethical situations within scientific publishing. Okay, what we do and why we were waiting all these years for a university report is the author never responded to our numerous requests, and we didn't have clear evidence that the articles published in our journals were in fact subject to misconduct. So what we really try to do is wait for clear evidence, and ideally what we want is the institutions to recommend retraction before we retract articles. But in the meantime, we use expressions of concern on articles. So while we were waiting for this institutional report, there were expressions of concerns attached to these 5 articles that outlined that the articles were related to an ongoing investigation that may result in future retraction or corrections to the article. And that's to say that the expressions of concerns are not an end-all be-all. They are a temporary solution, and they must be replaced with either a statement of exoneration or a correction statement or a full article retraction. Okay, so to conclude, and if you'll indulge me in somewhat of a forced metaphor here, I would say that the current publishing landscape is filled with a lot of big bad wolves that are really trying to blow down the houses of scientific journals, scientific associations. And in response to this, I think it's really important to, instead of being detectives at the crime scene, to focus our attention on building sturdy foundations that can withstand these winds of fraudulent publishing, scientific misconduct. And it's in my opinion that the best way to do that is to rely on the experts providing rigorous peer review, protocols that outline how journals respond to scientific misconduct. These should be published and available in the instructions for authors and on the websites. And it should also be clear that the journal and the journal editors have agreed to cooperate with institutions, and that in cases where the author is not responsive, that they are involving the institution in investigations of research misconduct. And if we're not doing that, I think we kind of get into straw houses or houses made of sticks, and not to pick, but open peer review after publication where no revisions are requested by the authors, I think puts publishers in a very hot water. And there's a lot of talk about AI-generated peer review, and I think that's going to propose a whole new set of problems, which I'm sure we'll be talking about for the next couple years. Thank you very much.